would have asked. In relation to parliamentary procedures, I'd like to start the class off by saying I'm not here to teach, you're here to learn. There's a difference. If you don't pick up the material, it's not because it's too difficult, it's simply because I did not present it well enough. One of the ways I can tell if I'm doing that or not is by your questions. If I use a phrase that you're not familiar with, please raise your hand and let me know, and I'll be glad to go over it. But again, please feel free to ask any questions that you may have. Robert's Rules of Order, basically they're common sense, common courtesy. Now I think you're going to find it as we go through. What we're going to go over is found in Robert's Rules of Order. So this will be applicable not only in a political party, but it'll be in a civic club, in this organization, and any organization that has Robert's Rules of Order as its parliamentary authority. We'll start off with the 3 basic steps of presenting a motion. First, someone makes the motion, then there is a second, and then the chair places it before the body. For example, when I go through these different motions, I'm going to try to present the verbiage you would use. What words would you use if you wanted to enact that motion? Because that's one of the things that stops people from making a motion is they're not sure how they're supposed to say it. All right, so if someone wanted, for example, if this were a civic club and you wanted to purchase the property immediately to the east, you would just, Mr. Chairman, I move that the club purchase the property, the empty lot, immediately to our east. Then someone would second it. The chair would then say it's been moved and seconded that we purchase the property immediately to our east. Is there any debate? Or the chair may say, are you ready for the question? When this third step occurs, the ownership of the motion has passed from the maker to the body. Before that, the maker can withdraw it on his or her own authority. Once it's placed before the body by the chair, the person has to have consent of the body to withdraw it. You may have seen the concept of what is known as a friendly amendment in action. For example, someone has a motion, another person makes an amendment. The motion is placed before the body, someone makes an amendment, and the original maker says, I accept that as a friendly amendment. You can't do that. And no 2 people can amend the motion. Remember, it now belongs to the body. So if you're going to amend it, the body has to amend it with a majority vote. What the chair will say is, in that instance, it's been moved and seconded that we amend the motion by doing X, then you place it before the body. There are certain motions that are ranked, and we're going to begin with the lowest ranking motion and work our way up. There are a lot of motions that aren't ranked, but this will begin to give you a core idea of what Robert's Rules of Order are about. The lowest ranking motion is the main motion. And when I say lowest ranking, when I say ranking, I mean the motions lower ranked yield to the motions high above it. Or motions high above take precedence over the lower ranking motions. The but private of all motions is the main motion. This brings business before the body. So in other words, if you want to buy the property immediately to your east, this is how you do it. Mr. Chairman, I move that we purchase the property immediately to our east. Second, chair places before the body, that's a main motion. It is amendable, it is debatable, it requires a majority vote for adoption. It's the most frequently used motion. It brings business before the body. The important point is, it can only be made when there is no other business before the body. So the decks have to be clear for you to do it. The next highest ranking motion is postponed indefinitely, rarely used. Basically what it does is it kills the motion. Why would you have a motion to kill it when you just simply vote no on the original motion? Well, the theory is if you have, for example, you got a motion and it's to make the governor part of some committee you're going to set up. Well, it's not a nice honor to the governor, but everybody knows the governor's not going to be on the committee or do any work. So rather than vote no on the governor, you vote to postpone it indefinitely. That kills it without actually voting down the governor. It's something of a parliamentary fig leaf. Yes, ma'am.
Does a motion to postpone indefinitely require a second?
A motion to postpone indefinitely requires a second.
And
It
is
is
debatable?
amendable, and I'm sorry, it is debatable.
Thank
And
you.
debate on the motion to postpone indefinitely can go into the merits of the main motion itself. Next up to learn is a motion to amend, the second most frequently used motion outside of the main motion. It is used to change the meaning of the original motion. Add words, insert words, you can strike words, or you can do a combination of add and strike. If it pertains to at least an entire paragraph, it would be the motion to substitute. It requires a second. It requires a majority vote for adoption. And importantly enough, it requires a majority vote for adoption, even if the main motion as amended would require 2/3 vote. For example, you want to amend your bylaws. You've given proper notice, it requires a 2/3 vote. Maybe you want to increase your annual dues from $25 to $35. Someone moves to amend it to make it, instead of 35, make it 30. That amendment takes a majority vote, but then when you vote on it as amended, that will take a 2/3 vote. Any amendment has to be germane. In other words, if you have a motion to buy the Secretary of Furniture, and someone moves to amend it by saying, I move to pay the expenses of the President's expenses to the state convention. That motion to amend is out of order because it's got nothing to do with buying the Secretary of Furniture. Now, if you want to buy a Secretary of Desk, you can amend it by saying, and a filing cabinet. But you can't go into something that's not germane to the topic. If you have an amendment, for example, you're going to buy the property immediately to your east. Someone can move to amend it and turn it into a parking lot. That's a primary amendment. That's an order. The amendment's amendable. So you can have a secondary amendment. You insert the word lighted. So it'll be a lighted parking lot. A secondary amendment is no longer amendable. That's as far as it'll go. And when you debate an amendment, the debate's limited to the amendment. You may not go into the merits of the main motion. In other words, if it's to purchase the property, the amendment is to convert it into parking lot. You can argue about, I don't want it to be a parking lot, I want it to be an extension of the main building, that's fine. You can't argue, I don't want to buy the property. You gotta wait until the main motion is back before the body. Does that make sense?